So the new Mean Girls movie dropped over the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, which makes sense seeing as how the lead character of that movie is African American. It performed well at the box office and it got mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But this movie had some really interesting marketing behind it. See, this movie, Mean Girls 2024, was based off of the Broadway musical Mean Girls, which was based off of the 2004 movie Mean Girls, which was based off of a book. Is everyone clear on that? So this most recent movie is a musical, but the movie's marketing intentionally downplayed the fact that it is a musical. For example, in this movie poster, the only hint is that music note in the A. And on this poster, the only hint is that she's wearing one ring that has a music note on it.
Scale up. Enhance.
Oh my God!
Really not very explicit. It's like they're making you play Where is Waldo, except they never told you who you're looking for. The main trailer that was used for the movie also doesn't highlight any musical numbers. Instead, it was set to an Olivia Rodrigo track. Hey, gonna get them back, whoa, make them jealous, gonna feel like crap, hey, whoa. Although there was this other cut of the trailer that was released later that had a tiny bit of singing in it.
My name is Regina George.
That's it. That's supposed to convey to you that this entire movie is a musical. And I'm not speculating when I say that this was done intentionally. Paramount's president of global marketing and distribution, Mark Weinstock, admitted that it was intentional in this interview that he did with Variety. Quote, to start off saying, musical, 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 you have the potential to turn off audiences. I want everyone to be equally excited. Okay guys, so here's the pitch. We're gonna remake Mean Girls, but we're gonna base it off of the Broadway musical version. I don't know, not everybody likes musicals. Ew, we're not gonna tell them, obviously. We didn't wanna run out and say it's a musical because people tend to treat musicals differently. This movie is a broad comedy with music. It could be considered a musical, yes, but it appeals to a larger audience. You can see it in trailers for Wonka and The Color Purple. They don't say musical either. Mark, that's not the same thing, Mark. I'll admit that the marketing for both The Color Purple and Wonka are also making the intentional choice to not highlight the fact that they're musicals, but they get a little bit more of a pass. First of all, The Color Purple was a little bit more forthcoming about the fact that it was a musical. Still downplayed, but not to the extent that Mean Girls downplayed it. The trailers were set to musical numbers from the Broadway show. Plus, there were significantly more shots used in those trailers of people doing obvious musical numbers. Plus, the Broadway version of The Color Purple is pretty well known to exist. It got a lot of attention, it was critically acclaimed, it won multiple Tonys, so it's not exactly obscure. And probably the most well-known version of Willy Wonka is the 1971 film, which was a musical. So with those films, in general, it's going to be significantly less surprising to audiences that the new adaptions are musicals. But what's the best known version of Mean Girls? Mark? Is it the Broadway musical? I don't think it is, Mark. Hey guys. Jeez, dude, is that a gun? Oh, this? Yeah, I found it in the dumpster. You have to warn us before you just come in here with a gun. Oh, I'm sorry. Does the gun store warn you that there's gonna be guns? Our first teaser was Renee Rapp to the camera singing, it did so much for us because immediately it said, this is your new Regina. Lindsay Lohan and Rachel McAdams are not in this movie. Lindsay Lohan is literally in this movie. She has a cameo. That counts as being in the movie, Mark.
Oh my God, stop f***ing lying.
Mark seems really determined to convince us that this is not a remake of the original Mean Girls. We didn't want to copy the lines exactly because we didn't want people to think that they were getting a version of the old movie. This is a version of the old movie. There were some tweaks made, sure, but the overall plot is mostly the same. There is one major differentiator though, Mark, that you could market. There is one big one. One big difference. So by the time this movie hit theaters, most people who were like truly invested in seeing Mean Girls already knew that it was a musical. But unsurprisingly, based on the marketing, a lot of casual viewers were caught by surprise. So people who weren't expecting a musical and felt tricked were disappointed, but at least the people who knew it was a musical and liked the Broadway version of the musical were happy, right? I mean, some of them were. Again, it's not like the reception of this movie was completely negative. But the thing is, the Broadway musical version is like a musical-ass musical. The songs are like super high energy and show-tuney.
I can be who I want to be. Sexy.
But when when you're adapting something that was written for stage to film, you've got to tone some of that stuff back because generally the bigness of it all just doesn't work on film. There's some exceptions, like it still works pretty well with animated movies, or movies that have a more comedic tone where the whole musical number can kind of be a parody of itself. Like that full-on Bollywood production that they did in the Barbie movie would be a good example. But generally, you have to tone it back, and it seems like for this movie, they might have toned it back a little too much. Because a lot of the fans of the original musical seemed disappointed by the adaption and the way they handled the songs. Like there's this one song that in the Broadway version has this really like upbeat tropical vibe. I actually kind of like it.
Stupid with love, I wanna get it.
But in the movie version, it sounds like this.
And I'm stupid with love, I wanna get it.
People have been saying that the movie version of this song sounds like Danny Gonzalez wrote it, which Danny has been fully leaning into.
Okay, you guys win. Here is how I ended up making one of the songs from the new Mean Girls movie. And I'm stupid with love.
Danny, you little scamp. You didn't really write that song, Danny. Okay, so they made the movie a musical, but they really downplayed it in the marketing so that casual viewers would still go to see it. But then also they made the musical super non-musically so that the people who were excited about the fact that it was a musical were also disappointed, which led to situations like this, theaters where you can audibly hear the audience start groaning when the characters start to sing. It's not the best look. Okay, so then here's the big question. Why would they make it a musical if they think people don't like musicals? Like, it didn't have to be a musical. Or did it? Take a look at this promo image. Who would you guess is the lead character based on this picture? Her, right? That's Renee Rapp. She plays Regina George. And while Regina George is a major character, the antagonist, she's not the lead character. The lead character is Katie Heron, right here portrayed by Angourie Rice. Why is Renee Rapp so big? In this promo image, nobody's there except Renee Rapp. Look at this interview with Tina Fey, who's the one cast member who got to come. Also, wait a minute, Renee Rapp played Regina George in the Broadway musical version, and now she's reprising that role for the movie, but none of the other cast from the musical seems to be here. Why does this whole movie seem so centered on Renee Rapp, who's not even playing the lead character? So Renee first auditioned for the stage version of the Mean Girls musical in 2018, at that point fresh out of high school. And she was offered the role of Regina, but for the traveling national tour of the show. But she didn't want to do all that traveling. She just wanted to do the Broadway show that stays in New York, so she turned it down. And then a few months later, she hears again from Tina Fey and Lorne Michaels, both of whom are working as producers on this project. And they offer her the role of Regina George on the Broadway show, so she doesn't have to travel, she can just stay in New York. But here's the thing. Renee Rapp isn't actually that passionate about acting. She wants to be a pop star. She has a budding music career. She has a studio album out.
I was always very upfront with like any agent or manager or anybody that I ever worked with. I was like, look, like, yeah, I understand you want to sign me for acting. However, you need to know that this is not my main goal.
So she is, again, fresh out of high school, being offered a major role in a Broadway production by Tina Fey and Lorne Michaels. So what's she gonna say? Quote, I was like, I know you motherfuckers do SNL. So I will do it if you agree to help my music career for the rest of my life. And they have. It was always just as a means to make this happen. So I've worked in the traditional entertainment industry as an actor, and this story absolutely perplexes me. It's an extremely competitive industry. There are tons and tons of very talented people competing for any given opportunity. So I really don't understand why this played out the way it did. It's just very counter to my own personal experience. All right, Renee, congratulations. You've got the role of Regina for the national tour. Ew, the tour? I don't want to do all that traveling. Okay, how about just for the Broadway show? You can stay in New York. Ugh. Fine, but I'll only do it if you promise to help me with my music career until I die. Kid, you got yourself a deal.
Okay, thank you. Everybody else go home. We're good, thank you.
They didn't take that as like, there's this like entitled bitch, but I think a lot of other people in my experience have just like brushed it off, called me a bitch, called me self-centered, and like, that's fine, that's completely fine. Like, if you need to call me a bitch for standing up for myself, you go right ahead.
To be clear, I'm not calling Renee a bitch. I don't know Renee. What I'm calling her is lucky. It's just wild to me that that scenario played out the way it did. But anyways, I think that is the main reason why the new Mean Girls movie is an adaptation of the Broadway musical, even though Paramount doesn't think that people actually want a musical. In fact, it's the only reason this 2024 version of Mean Girls exists in any form. Tina Fey and Lorne Michaels had some blood oath with Renee Rapp that they had to help her become a pop star, so they wanted to showcase her singing in a movie. So it had to be the musical, like there was never any other possibility. The project wasn't conceived from the question of what do audiences want. It was conceived from the question of how do we kickstart Renee Rapp's music career. And then the marketing team was given the challenge of marketing that to a broad audience. But you know, again, the movie is doing well in the box office, and while not everybody loves it, a lot of people do. I'm not trying to say here that this is a bad movie or that this movie shouldn't exist. I just thought the story was interesting. Anyways, that's all I got. Like and subscribe. Bye!